Don't expect a dime from Dad's 101 million, my son Michael whispered sharply as we sat in the heavy, oak-paneled room of a lawyer's office in Dallas, Texas. His voice was dripping with arrogance, and his smirk made my heart sink. I clenched my hands on my lap, trying to keep calm. My husband of 42 years, Richard, had passed just 2 weeks earlier, and I was still mourning. I wasn't thinking about money, but the words stung because they came from my own flesh and blood. My son, the boy I raised, the man I sacrificed everything for. Michael leaned closer. Face it, Mom. Dad loved me more than you. You'll probably just get some crumbs. Don't embarrass yourself when the lawyer reads the will. I wanted to tell him that love wasn't a competition, that money wasn't everything. But the bitterness in his eyes told me he had already chosen greed over kindness. Before I could even open my mouth, the lawyer, a tall man with silver hair, cleared his throat and opened the sealed envelope. The room fell silent. My daughter-in-law sat beside Michael with her arms crossed, wearing a satisfied smile as if she already knew the fortune was coming their way. My daughter, Emily, sat on the far corner, quiet, her eyes red from crying. The lawyer's voice was steady as he began. To my beloved wife. That single phrase made Michael's smirk vanish. His face turned pale as though all the blood had drained out of him. I froze, barely breathing, waiting for what would come next. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. My name is Margaret, though everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 65 years old, and I never imagined that my life would turn into the kind of story people gossip about over coffee. I grew up in Oklahoma, poor but happy. My parents raised me to believe in kindness, honesty, and the importance of family. When I married Richard at 23, I thought my life was set. He was tall, handsome, and ambitious, working his way up in the oil business. We didn't have much in the beginning, but we had love, and that felt like enough. For years, we struggled. I worked 2 jobs while Richard chased contracts. I raised Michael and Emily, cooked every meal, and stretched every dollar. There were nights when I skipped dinner so the kids could eat. But I told myself it was worth it, because one day things would get better. And they did. By the time Richard hit his 50s, his business exploded. He made smart deals, invested in land, and soon, he was sitting on millions. Our lives changed overnight. Suddenly, we had a mansion in Dallas, cars, vacations in Europe, everything I thought only existed in magazines. But with wealth came changes I didn't expect. Richard became colder, more distant. The man who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms stopped looking at me altogether. He started spending long nights at business dinners, and the way he looked at me when I asked questions made me feel like I was intruding on a life I no longer belonged in. Michael, our son, soaked in the wealth like a sponge. He grew up spoiled, entitled, and arrogant. He never knew the hunger, the second-hand clothes, or the tiny apartment where we used to huddle during winters. He only knew luxury, and he acted like he was born to rule the world. Emily was different. My sweet girl never forgot where we came from. She stayed humble, studied hard, and tried to remind her brother to do the same. But Michael laughed at her, calling her the poor spirit in a rich house. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It came in small doses, a forgotten birthday, a dismissive laugh, an argument where Michael told me I was just a housewife and owed my comfort to Dad, not myself. Each time, my heart cracked a little more. But the worst wound came a year before Richard's death. I discovered Michael had been pressuring his father to rewrite the will. He wanted everything, the business, the money, the properties. And Richard, tired of our constant fights, seemed to lean toward his side. I remember confronting Michael in the kitchen one night. "Michael," I said softly, "your father built this fortune, but I was by his side every step of the way. Don't you think it's fair to share? Don't you think kindness matters more than greed?" He looked at me with disgust. "Kindness doesn't buy mansions, Mom. And let's not pretend you built anything. You were just there. Dad is the reason we're rich. You should be grateful for whatever crumbs fall your way." That night, I cried harder than I had in years. Not because of the money, but because I realized my son no longer loved me for me. He saw me as an obstacle between him and his inheritance. When Richard fell ill, my life became a whirlwind of hospitals, medicines, and sleepless nights. I sat by his side, holding his hand, even when he barely opened his eyes. Michael rarely visited unless it was to discuss important matters with the doctors. Emily came often, bringing flowers and books to read to her father. When Richard passed, I thought the grief would destroy me. But what happened at the lawyer's office shocked me more than his death. The lawyer's voice echoed, "To my beloved wife." Michael's face twisted in panic. His lips trembled. And that was when I realized something was about to be revealed that none of them expected. But let me take you back a little further to show you how deep the betrayal ran. Because this wasn't just about inheritance. This was about love, loyalty, and revenge, and how sometimes the kindness you show can come back to you in ways you never imagine. After Richard's business took off, he started surrounding himself with people who fed his ego. One of them was Michael. My husband adored him, or maybe he adored the way Michael praised him. Father and son became inseparable, while I became an afterthought. I didn't complain. I focused on keeping the family together, cooking dinners, planning holidays, pretending we were still the same family we used to be. But cracks widened with every passing year. Then came the day I accidentally overheard Michael on the phone. He was in the study, door cracked open, his voice sharp. "Yes, Dad's lawyer is working on the paperwork. Don't worry, once the will is finalized, everything comes to me. Mom won't see a dime. She doesn't deserve it." I stood frozen, my heart thundering in my chest. My son, my baby boy, was plotting to cut me out of everything. I wanted to storm in, but I didn't. Instead, I closed the door quietly and walked away, shaking. That night, I prayed for strength, not for money, but for the wisdom to handle what was coming. Life went on, but something inside me had changed. I started keeping notes, copies of documents, small things I thought might matter later. I wasn't sure what I'd do with them, but I knew I couldn't just stand by. And then, a month before Richard's death, something happened that changed everything. One night, Emily came to me with tears in her eyes. "Mom," she whispered, "I think Dad's hiding something big. And it might have to do with you." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She handed me a folder she had found in his office. Inside were letters, handwritten, dated years back, and a secret bank account under my name that I never knew about. The truth began to unravel, and it was bigger than anything I ever imagined. That night, sitting with Emily, reading those letters, my hands trembling, I realized Richard's will was not going to be what Michael expected. But I also knew this was just the beginning of the storm. Because in the world of money, betrayal doesn't stop with death. And the next morning, as I prepared to face my children, the phone rang. On the other end was Richard's lawyer, asking me to come in urgently. What he told me would set the stage for everything that happened at the will reading. And when I walked into that office weeks later with Michael smirking and Emily holding my hand, I had no idea just how explosive it was going to be. And that, my dear readers, is where I'll leave you for now. Because what the lawyer revealed after those first 3 words, "to my beloved wife," changed everything. But Michael didn't know it yet, and neither did I. The lawyer's voice rang clear in the quiet office. "To my beloved wife," he said again, slowly, as if to make sure each word carried its full weight. Michael's smugness cracked. His lips parted, and his eyes darted to Richard's lawyer, then to me, and then to Emily. His wife, Jenna, gripped his arm, whispering something into his ear, but he didn't respond. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and continued reading. Margaret, who stood by me in poverty, in struggle and in success. Without her, there would have been no empire to pass down. A gasp slipped out of Emily. My heart raced. Michael's jaw tightened. The lawyer paused to take a sip of water, his eyes deliberately scanning the room. He seemed to enjoy the way silence settled like a storm cloud. Michael leaned forward. "Skip to the important part," he snapped. The lawyer raised a brow. "Mr. Carter, your father's words are the important part. Please allow me to finish." The weight in my chest grew heavier. I wanted to know where this was going, whether Richard had truly seen me all those years, or whether this was just a preamble before everything went into Michael's hands. But the lawyer's next words stopped me cold. I leave to my wife Margaret the first and largest portion of my estate. Michael shot up from his chair, his face red. What? The lawyer lifted a hand calmly. Sit down, Mr. Carter. I'm not finished. And in that moment, I knew everything was about to unravel. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. To understand why Michael's outrage was so fierce, you need to know just how deeply his hunger for wealth had taken root. Growing up, he was never satisfied. When Richard bought him his first car at 16, a shiny red Mustang, Michael demanded a BMW instead. When we threw him a graduation party, he complained that the guest list was too small, the food too plain, the gifts too ordinary. Nothing was ever enough, and Richard, blinded by pride, kept feeding the fire. Boys will be boys, he'd say when I objected. He deserves the best. But what Richard called the best turned into a bottomless pit. Michael learned early that throwing tantrums got him rewards. When he wanted something, he pushed until he got it. And when Emily spoke up, Michael, you should be grateful, he would laugh in her face. As parents, we should have drawn the line. But Richard and I fought constantly about discipline. And in the end, my husband's voice was louder. He hated conflict, and giving Michael what he wanted was easier than saying no. By the time Michael was 21, he had burned through thousands of dollars on luxury clothes, trips with friends, and cars he barely drove. When I questioned him, he looked at me with the same dismissive tone he'd later use at the lawyer's office. You don't understand money, Mom. You grew up poor. Dad gets it. He knows I need to live big. The truth? What Michael needed was humility, but he never learned it. Meanwhile, Emily worked her way through college, determined to earn her place. She never asked her father for handouts. She picked up part-time jobs, applied for scholarships, and sent me little notes in the mail that said things like, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll make you proud." And she did, every day. The difference between my children was like night and day. And deep down, I worried about what would happen when Richard was gone. I knew Emily would be okay, because she carried strength inside her. But Michael? Without his father's shadow to hide under, he would crumble. Or worse, he would lash out. And now, sitting in that lawyer's office, I saw it beginning. Michael slammed his hand on the table. This is a mistake. My father promised me the business. He said I'd run everything. The lawyer didn't flinch. Mr. Carter, I assure you, these are your father's explicit wishes. The document is legally binding. Michael's wife hissed in his ear, trying to calm him, but he shoved her hand away. Emily spoke softly. Michael, maybe we should just listen. He whipped his head toward her. Shut up, Emily. This doesn't concern you. You've always been jealous because Dad and I were closer. Her face crumpled. My mother's heart ached seeing my children turn into enemies before my eyes. The lawyer cleared his throat, trying to take back control. There are several sections of the will. Mr. Carter, if you do not remain seated, I'll have to ask you to leave the room. Michael dropped back into his chair, his fists clenched. He looked like a volcano about to erupt. I swallowed hard, bracing myself as the lawyer continued reading. But before I tell you what came next, let me explain why Richard's words meant so much. For years, I thought he had forgotten me. When he came home late at night, smelling of expensive cigars and expensive cologne, I pretended not to notice. When he pushed me aside in conversations to brag about deals with Michael, I forced a smile. I told myself it was temporary, that one day he'd look at me the way he used to, with warmth, with love. But that day never came. Or at least, I thought it never did. Those letters Emily found changed everything. Inside that folder, Richard had written things I never imagined he still felt. Apologies for being absent. Gratitude for the nights I worked double shifts so he could build his dreams. Love, not expressed through flowers or words at the dinner table, but through pages written in secret. One letter stood out. It was dated 5 years earlier. Maggie, it began. I know I've failed you in many ways, but I want you to know when the time comes, I will make sure you are cared for. I could never have built this without you. Don't let Michael's arrogance make you doubt your worth. Everything I've done, I did with you in my heart. I read those words 100 times. Each time, tears blurred the ink until the letters bled together. And now, hearing the lawyer echo that same sentiment, without her there would have been no empire. I realized Richard had kept his promise. But I also knew Michael would never accept it without a fight. Back in the lawyer's office, tension pressed down like a heavy blanket. The lawyer took a deep breath. "Mr. Carter, your father did leave instructions regarding the business. But before I reveal that, I must read the section about the estate properties." Michael's face brightened for a split second, then darkened again when the lawyer read the next words. "To my wife, Margaret, I leave the family estate in Dallas, as well as the ranch in Amarillo and the vacation home in Aspen." Emily gasped softly. Jenna's eyes widened. Michael's chair screeched against the floor as he stood again. "No, that's my inheritance. Dad promised me Aspen. He said I'd host business partners there." The lawyer's tone hardened. "Sit down, or I will end this reading." Michael's chest heaved, but he obeyed. Barely. The lawyer turned to me with a nod, as though reassuring me. Then he continued, his words slicing through the silence. "And finally, to my wife, Margaret, I leave controlling shares of Carter Oil and Gas, 51% ownership, with full decision-making power." Emily gasped again, this time louder. I felt my stomach drop. Michael looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "What?" he shouted. "This is insane. He would never give her the business." The lawyer placed the papers neatly on the table. "Mr. Carter, your father made his wishes very clear. You may consult your own legal counsel if you'd like to contest, but the will is binding." Michael's face turned scarlet. His hands shook. And then, in a low, dangerous voice, he said, "If you think I'm going to let this stand, you're dead wrong." That night, when I got home, my mind was spinning. Yes, Richard had given me the fortune. But what good was it if my own son hated me for it? If my family was breaking apart piece by piece? Emily tried to reassure me. "Mom, you deserve this. You worked harder than anyone. Don't let Michael bully you." But I could see the worry in her eyes. She knew her brother. He wasn't going to back down. And she was right. Because just 3 days later, I woke up to find my car vandalized in the driveway. Tires slashed. Windows shattered. Spray painted across the hood in red paint were the words, "This isn't over." And that's where I'll leave you for now. Because that act of rage was only the beginning. Michael's war against me was about to get much darker and far more dangerous. The sight of my car that morning almost knocked the breath out of me. The driveway of our Dallas home, usually so peaceful, looked like a crime scene. The tires were flat, the windshield cracked into a spider web of glass, and across the silver hood, bright red spray paint screamed at me. This isn't over. For a moment, I just stood there in my robe, trembling, clutching my coffee mug, so hard I thought it might shatter. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear of strangers, but because I knew exactly who had done it. Michael, my own son. Emily came rushing out behind me. "Mom, what's wrong?" Her words cut off as her eyes landed on the car. She covered her mouth with her hands. "Oh my God." I swallowed hard. "It's him. It has to be him." Emily's face tightened. She didn't argue. She knew it too. The neighbors were already peeking through their curtains. I could almost hear their whispers. "That's Margaret Carter. Didn't her husband just die? And now this?" Emily grabbed my arm. "We need to call the police." I hesitated. He was my son. My boy. The child I carried, nursed, raised. The thought of pressing charges against him made my stomach churn. But then my eyes fell on the spray paint again. This isn't over. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And I realized with a cold shiver, if I didn't stand up now, Michael would destroy everything Richard left me. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. The police came within the hour. A young officer named Daniels walked around the car, scribbling in his notepad. "Looks deliberate," he said. "Do you have anyone in mind who might have done this, ma'am?" Emily looked at me, her eyes silently begging me to tell the truth. I opened my mouth and closed it. Shame washed over me. How could I admit that my own son was threatening me? How could I expose that our family, once seen as powerful and untouchable, was falling apart from the inside? Finally, I whispered, I think it was my son. Daniels looked up, his expression neutral, but his eyebrows raised slightly. Your son. Emily jumped in. He's been furious since the will reading. He said things, ugly things. This is just the beginning. Daniels nodded slowly. Do you want to press charges? The words stabbed into me like knives. Did I? Could I? I thought of Michael as a little boy, running through sprinklers in the backyard, laughing when Richard tossed him in the air. I thought of the nights I sat up sewing his Halloween costumes because he wanted to be the coolest kid at school. I thought of the way he used to hug me before bed and whisper, "Good night, Mommy. I love you." Where had that boy gone? Tears burned my eyes. I shook my head. Not yet. Emily groaned. Mom. Not yet, I repeated firmly. I just lost your father. I can't lose my son too. Maybe he just needs time. Daniel scribbled something else in his pad. All right, we'll file a report, but without pressing charges, there's not much more we can do. Still, if anything else happens, call us immediately. Understand? I nodded, though deep down I knew something else would happen. For the next few days, I lived in a state of constant fear. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every time a car slowed outside, I peered through the blinds. Emily stayed with me, refusing to leave me alone. She tried to lighten the mood, cooking dinner, playing soft music, telling me stories about her work. But even she couldn't shake the tension that hung between us. One evening, she said gently, "Mom, I know it's hard, but Michael isn't the same person anymore. You can't protect him by pretending nothing's happening. You have to protect yourself." Her words cut deep. I wanted to believe Michael would come around. That grief was making him lash out. But the truth was harder. Greed had eaten him alive, and there was nothing left of the boy I raised. Still, part of me held on to hope. That's the thing about mothers, we never stop hoping, even when hope becomes a knife in our own hands. A week later, Michael showed up at my door. He didn't knock. He pounded. When I opened it, Emily was right beside me, phone in her hand in case she needed to call the police. Michael stood there, his hair messy, eyes bloodshot, his suit wrinkled like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said, his voice low but sharp. "We need to talk." I gripped the doorknob tightly. About what? He pushed past me into the foyer without waiting for permission. His cologne, too strong, too bitter, filled the air. Emily snapped, "You can't just barge in here, Michael." He ignored her, turning to me instead. "Mom, you have to give me control of the company. Dad wanted me to run it. Everyone knows it. You don't know the first thing about business." My hand shook, but I held my ground. "Your father left me the shares for a reason. And if you want to be part of the company, you'll have to work with me, not against me." His jaw clenched. "Work with you? You'll ruin everything. Investors won't listen to you. You'll embarrass us." Emily stepped forward. "That's enough. Mom doesn't have to prove anything to you." Michael whirled on her. "Stay out of this, Emily. You've always been jealous. Dad never trusted you with anything important." Her face flushed, but she didn't back down. "At least I never destroyed my own family for money." The words hit like a slap. Michael's eyes narrowed, his hands balling into fists. For a terrifying moment, I thought he might actually hit her. I stepped between them, my voice shaking but firm. "Michael, stop this. Right now." He glared at me, his chest heaving. Then he spat the words that broke my heart in two. "You're dead to me." And with that, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled in its frame. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. Emily sat beside me, holding me as I sobbed. "I don't understand," I whispered. "How did my son become this person?" Emily stroked my hair. "Because Dad always gave him everything. He never learned that love matters more than money. But you can't blame yourself, Mom. You tried. You gave him everything that mattered. He just didn't want it." Her words were kind, but they didn't ease the ache inside me. Still, I clung to her hand like a lifeline. She was all I had left now. Or so I thought. Because 2 nights later, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a message that made my blood run cold. It was from an unknown number, but the words were unmistakable. Sign the company over to me, or you'll regret it. Attached was a photo of my house, taken from the street, at night, the porch light glowing, my bedroom window visible. He was watching me. The message glowed on my phone screen like a curse. Sign the company over to me, or you'll regret it. And then that photo, my house, taken at night, my bedroom window shining like a target. I sat upright in bed, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. My chest tightened, my breath came in shallow bursts. Someone was out there, watching. Emily burst into the room a moment later, rubbing her eyes. Mom, what happened? I handed her the phone with shaking fingers. She read the text, her face draining of color. Oh my God. She ran to the window, yanking the curtains shut. We need to call the police. Right now. But I shook my head, my voice breaking. Emily, it's him. I know it's him. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. We both knew. Michael had crossed the line. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. Officer Daniels came again the next morning, his notepad ready. He studied the text, his expression grim. This isn't just vandalism anymore, he said. This is a direct threat. Whoever sent this is trying to intimidate you. Emily folded her arms. It's my brother. He wants the company. He's been spiraling since the reading. He destroyed Mom's car last week. Now this. Daniels nodded. It's possible, but unless we can prove it came from him, it's just speculation. Did the number match his phone? I shook my head. It was unknown. Could have been a burner, Daniels muttered. People use them to avoid being traced. We'll look into it. In the meantime, I suggest installing security cameras around the property. And don't go anywhere alone. The thought of being watched made my skin crawl. But I nodded. After he left, Emily paced the living room, her hands running through her hair. Mom, we can't keep doing this. He's dangerous. You have to get protection. Please. Her words pierced through the fog in my mind. She was right. Michael wasn't just angry anymore. He was desperate. And desperation makes people reckless. I picked up the phone and called a security company. By evening, cameras were installed around the house. Every corner, every entry point covered. The man who set them up showed me the app on my phone where I could see everything in real time. For the first time in days, I breathed a little easier. But it didn't last. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak of the house. Around midnight, I finally picked up my phone and opened the security app. The front porch camera loaded first. Empty. Then the backyard. Still. Then the driveway. And my heart nearly stopped. There was someone standing there. A tall figure, half hidden by the shadows. Just standing, staring at the house. My hand shook as I zoomed in. The image was grainy, but I knew. I didn't need a clear face. The posture, the build, the way he tilted his head, it was Michael. I grabbed Emily from her room. It's him. He's outside. She rushed to my phone, her face pale as she saw the feed. Mom, call 911. I dialed with trembling hands, whispering to the operator. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed down the street. But when the officers searched the driveway, he was gone. Disappeared into the night, leaving only footprints in the dew-soaked grass. Officer Daniels frowned as he looked at the footage. Not enough to make a positive ID, but it does look like your son. He sighed. Mrs. Carter, I'll be honest. If he keeps this up, he's going to slip. And when he does, we'll catch him. I nodded numbly, but inside I was breaking. How had it come to this? My son, lurking in the shadows like a stranger. My boy, the same one I once tucked into bed, now terrifying me in my own home. The next few days passed in a blur of fear and exhaustion. Emily barely left my side, and I clung to her presence like a lifeline. I tried to distract myself with the company papers the lawyer had delivered, documents showing my new authority, shares, assets. But every time I looked at them, my stomach twisted. I didn't feel powerful. I felt hunted. On the fourth day, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: go to church. The small chapel in Dallas had been my refuge when I was young and struggling. I hadn't set foot inside in decades, not since Richard's business had consumed our lives. But as I sat in the pew, the stained glass glowing in the sunlight, I let the silence wash over me. God, I whispered, my voice trembling, I don't know what to do. He's my son. I love him, but he's destroying me. Please give me strength. Tears streamed down my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of peace. When I left, I found Emily waiting in the parking lot, smiling faintly. I'm glad you went, Mom. You needed this. I squeezed her hand. Maybe she was right. Maybe faith would give me the courage I lacked. But courage alone wasn't going to stop Michael, because that very night the game escalated. It was just past midnight when the alarm blared. Emily and I shot out of bed, our hearts racing. The security system screamed through the house, lights flashing red. I grabbed my phone, pulling up the cameras, and there it was, the back door, shattered glass, and Michael stepping inside. Through the crack of the curtain, I couldn't tear my eyes away. My son was standing in the driveway with strangers, his posture tense, his fingers stabbing toward my house, as though I were his enemy instead of his mother. The two men with him looked dangerous. One had tattoos creeping up his neck, and the other swung a crowbar casually, like it was just another tool in his pocket. My chest tightened. These weren't friends. These were thugs. Emily appeared beside me, rubbing sleep from her eyes. When she saw what I saw, her breath caught. Oh my God, he brought people. I grabbed her arm before she could speak again. Don't make a sound. We crouched down, barely peeking above the windowsill. Michael's voice carried faintly through the night air. She has the money. Everything Dad left is in her control. Tonight we get inside and she signs it over. The man with the crowbar smirked. What if she doesn't? Michael's jaw tightened. She will. My whole body went cold. He wasn't bluffing anymore. He was planning to force me. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. Emily pulled out her phone with shaky hands. I'm calling the police. But before she could dial, headlights swept across the driveway. A neighbor's car pulled in across the street. Michael cursed under his breath, motioning quickly to his men. They slipped into the shadows, vanishing into the trees. Emily exhaled, relief flooding her face. They're gone. I wasn't so sure. My son wasn't the type to give up easily. He would be back. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind like a whisper of danger. I stayed awake, watching the security feed, waiting for him to return. But he didn't. The next morning, I decided enough was enough. I went down to the sheriff's office myself and told Daniels everything. The threats, the break-in, the men he brought to my home. His expression hardened as he listened. This isn't just a family matter anymore, he said. If he's bringing people like that around, you could be in real danger. We'll increase patrols in your neighborhood. And if you're willing, we can talk about a restraining order. The thought of signing papers against my own son broke me. A restraining order against the boy I once held in my arms, the boy who once made me Mother's Day cards out of construction paper and crayons. But then I remembered his words, she will. The way he had said it chilled me. I looked at Daniels and nodded. Do it. For a brief moment, I felt safer. The police cars passed by often. Emily stayed close, always watchful. And I buried myself deeper into Richard's old work, studying every page, every number. Some days, I almost forgot the shadow looming over me, until I came across something unexpected. It was a set of old letters Richard had written but never mailed. They were tucked inside a file labeled private. The letters were all addressed to me. In one, he wrote about how proud he was of me, how he wished he had told me more often. In another, he spoke of his regrets, of spoiling Michael, of letting him believe that money was the measure of a man. But the last letter was different. If you're reading this, my love, it means I'm gone. And I know Michael. He will come after you. That is why I left everything in your hands. Because you are strong enough to protect what matters, even when he cannot. Tears blurred my vision as I read the words. For so long, I had felt invisible in Richard's shadow. But he had seen me. He had trusted me. And now, it was up to me to rise to the challenge. Emily found me crying at the desk, the letters spread out before me. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "Dad knew you were the strong one all along." For the first time, I believed it. The days that followed felt calmer. Too calm, almost. I started walking in the mornings again, enjoying the fresh air of North Carolina, greeting neighbors who had heard whispers about trouble with the sun. Some looked at me with pity, others with quiet admiration. I tried to hold my head high, but the peace shattered 3 nights later. It was around 11 p.m. I was in the kitchen when the lights suddenly went out. The whole house plunged into darkness. Emily's voice rang from upstairs. "Mom, did the power go out?" Before I could answer, the security cameras cut to black. The monitors went dark. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a simple outage. Someone had cut the power. And then, through the silence, came the sound of heavy boots crunching across the lawn. The alarm shrieked like a wounded animal. My heart slammed in my chest as Emily clutched my arm. On the security feed, Michael's figure moved through the shattered back door, stepping into my kitchen. His face was wild, his hair messy, his eyes sharp like glass shards. He wasn't my son in that moment. He was a stranger breaking into my home. Emily whispered, "Mom, we have to hide." Now. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone. My son, my baby boy, was inside, destroying what little safety I had left. The alarm kept wailing until Michael smashed the keypad with his fist. The sound cut off, leaving an awful silence. I could hear his heavy footsteps echoing through the house. "Mom," his voice rang out, harsh and angry. "Where are you? We need to talk." Emily pulled me toward the closet in my bedroom. "Come on, before he finds us." We squeezed inside, my breath ragged, my body trembling. Through the slats, I could see the faint glow of the hallway. Michael's footsteps drew closer. "Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this." As I crouched in that closet, I thought back to when Michael was little. He used to be terrified of thunderstorms. He would run into my room at night, crawling into my bed, his small hands clutching my arm as lightning cracked outside. "Don't be scared, sweetheart," I used to whisper, holding him close. "Mommy's here. I'll protect you." And now here I was, hiding from the very child I once promised to protect. Emily's grip tightened around mine. Her eyes shone with anger more than fear. She whispered, "This has to stop. We can't keep letting him do this." I nodded weakly, but deep inside, a storm of guilt tore me apart. How did my son become this person? Was it my fault? Did my silence through the years create this monster? Michael's footsteps stopped outside the bedroom. The door creaked open. "Mom," he called again, softer this time. "Come on, I just want to talk. Don't hide from me." Emily's jaw clenched. She leaned close to my ear. "If he opens this closet, I'm calling the police right in front of him." But before he could reach us, the faint sound of sirens filled the distance. The security company had dispatched help automatically when the alarm was triggered. Michael cursed under his breath, then stormed back down the hallway. By the time the police arrived, he was gone, vanished again into the night. The officers searched the house, but all they found was broken glass, scattered papers, and the echo of Michael's fury. "This is escalating," Daniel said grimly. "He's not just making threats anymore. He's acting on them. If he comes back, it could be worse." Emily turned to me, her voice sharp with frustration. "Do you see now, Mom? He's dangerous. He's not going to stop until you stop him." I lowered my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "He's my son." Emily's voice softened, but her words cut deep. "And he's also your enemy right now." The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the will documents again. My hands traced the ink, Richard's signature scrawled at the bottom. I remembered the letters Emily had found, his words about how I had built this life with him, how he owed everything to me. For so long, I had felt invisible, just the wife in the background, the mother who kept the house standing while Richard and Michael shined in the spotlight. But Richard's will, those letters, they were proof that I mattered. Proof that I wasn't just an afterthought. Yeah, that proof had turned my son into a monster. Emily sat across from me, sipping coffee, her eyes heavy with worry. What are you thinking, Mom? I looked at her, my voice trembling. I'm thinking maybe your father knew this would happen. Maybe that's why he gave me control, because he knew Michael couldn't handle it. Emily nodded slowly. Then you have to honor that. You have to fight, Mom. For yourself. For me. Even for Dad. Her words lit a small fire inside me. For the first time since Richard's death, I felt a spark of determination. If Michael wanted war, maybe I had no choice but to fight. Over the next week, I started learning about the company. I met with Richard's old advisors, listened to board members, and studied the accounts. The men in suits looked skeptical at first, but when I asked sharp questions and pointed out errors in the reports, I saw a flicker of respect in their eyes. It wasn't easy. Some days I felt like I was drowning in numbers and contracts. But each night, Emily sat with me at the dining table, helping me organize notes, reminding me that I was stronger than I thought. For years, I had believed I was just a housewife. But slowly, I began to see myself differently. Not as someone's shadow, but as someone with her own strength. Michael, of course, didn't disappear. He sent more texts, veiled threats, demands, promises of revenge. I blocked each number, but new ones always came. The police filed reports, but without concrete evidence, their hands were tied. Still, I felt safer with the cameras, the alarms, and Emily by my side. Until the night everything changed again. It was late, nearly midnight. I was in the living room, reviewing documents under the soft glow of a lamp when I heard a noise outside. At first, I thought it was the wind. But then I heard it again, a faint metallic click. I froze. Slowly, I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back, just a crack. And my blood ran cold. In the driveway, Michael stood with two men I didn't recognize. Strangers, rough-looking, dressed in dark clothes. One of them carried a crowbar. Michael pointed at the house, his face twisted with rage. And then I realized this time he hadn't come alone. The sound of boots on gravel sent a chill racing through my veins. The kind of chill that freezes you in place, your body screaming danger even before your mind fully understands. Emily came running down the stairs, phone in hand, her face pale in the faint glow of the flashlight she carried. The Wi-Fi's out too, she whispered. Mom, I think they cut everything. I didn't answer. My ears were tuned to the noises outside. The crunch of steps, the faint hiss of a whisper, the metallic clang of something being dragged. My heart pounded. So hard I thought they'd hear it through the walls. And then a knock. Not a polite one. A heavy, booming knock on the front door that rattled it in its frame. Mom, Emily's voice shook. I pressed a finger to my lips. My instinct screamed at me, don't open. Don't speak. Don't move. The knock came again. Louder. And then Michael's voice. Mom, I know you're in there. Let us in. We just want to talk. The fake sweetness in his tone made my stomach turn. It was the same voice he used when he was 10, asking for ice cream money, already knowing he'd spend it on something else. Emily gripped my arm. We need to hide. We hurried into the back room, pulling the old dresser in front of the door. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the flashlight. My son's voice followed us through the walls. Mom, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You don't want us to come in by force. A pause. Then, in a lower, darker tone. You know I'll do it. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. The crowbar struck the front door with a sickening crack. Wood splintered. Emily gasped, clutching her phone like a lifeline. No signal, she whispered. I pressed her hand in mine. Stay quiet. Stay still. The banging went on for what felt like forever. The sound of wood breaking, the groan of hinges. Every blow felt like it was splitting my ribs open. And then silence. I held my breath, straining to listen. A creak. Floorboards inside the house. They were in. Emily's eyes went wide. I could almost hear her heart beating. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, slow, deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. I gripped the flashlight like a weapon, ready to swing if I had to. Michael's voice called out again, closer this time. Mom, you're making me upset. Don't you love me anymore? Emily flinched at the words. My grip tightened. We sat frozen in the dark, waiting. Then, the sound of footsteps moving away. Toward the study. My chest clenched. The papers, the files, the letters. If they found those. A loud crash. Drawers yanked open. Papers scattered. Michael's voice rose, frustrated. Where is it? She has it. I know she does. The men muttered, their voices harsh, urgent. And then, suddenly, sirens. Red and blue lights flared through the curtains. Michael cursed loudly. Move, move, move. Footsteps thundered through the house. The back door slammed. And then silence. When the deputies finally found us huddled in the back room, my legs gave out. I sobbed into Emily's shoulder, my whole body shaking with relief and terror all at once. They searched the house, but Michael was gone. The men too, like shadows that vanished before dawn. Sheriff Daniels stayed with me until nearly sunrise. He promised me they'd catch him, that he couldn't keep running forever. But I knew my son. Michael was clever. He had always found ways to get what he wanted, and now he wanted me cornered. For the next few days, I barely slept. Emily refused to leave my side. Neighbors came with food, some with kind words, others with gossip whispered too loudly. She's the one with the fortune, you know. That's why the son's gone crazy. She should move, start over somewhere else. She won't last if he keeps coming back. I smiled and thanked them, but inside, their words festered. Was I foolish to stay? One evening, after most of the neighbors had gone home, Emily sat me down. Her eyes were determined, but soft. Mom, you can't keep living like this. Dad left you that money for security, not for fear. Maybe it's time you did something unexpected. I frowned. Unexpected. She nodded. Fight back. Not with anger. With kindness. Show Michael he can't control you. That you're not afraid to live. Her words lingered with me long after she'd gone to bed. Could kindness really stand against betrayal? Could love stand against greed? I thought of Richard's letters, his faith in me, his trust that I was strong enough. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe I didn't have to keep hiding. Maybe I could take back control. The next morning, I woke with a plan. I made calls to lawyers, to charities, to an accountant I trusted. Piece by piece, I began laying out what Richard's legacy would mean. Not just to me, but to others. If Michael wanted to bleed me dry, he would find nothing but empty veins. Because I had decided the money would not be his. It would be used for good, to build scholarships, to support shelters, to give hope where greed had stolen it. But even as I made those plans, a shadow loomed. Because Michael wasn't done with me yet. And he proved it that very night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pen in hand, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A voice I knew all too well spoke on the other end. Cold. Calculated. Mom, I hope you're comfortable. Because I'm watching you. I froze. My eyes darted to the windows, to the darkened corners of the yard beyond. Emily walked into the room, confused by my expression. Who is it? I didn't answer. My hand trembled as I gripped the phone tighter. Michael chuckled on the line. Don't bother calling the cops. By the time they get there, I'll be gone. But I'll be back. And next time, Mom. His voice dropped to a whisper that made my blood run cold. Next time, you won't see me coming. The line went dead, but his words echoed inside my head like a haunting. I'm watching you. For the rest of the night, I couldn't close my eyes. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside, every flicker of the curtains had me jumping. Emily finally fell asleep on the couch, her head resting on a pillow. But even in her dreams her brow was furrowed. I sat by the window, phone clutched in my hand, scanning the yard again and again. I kept imagining Michael's face in the shadows, his grin, his eyes, the same ones that once looked up at me as a baby when he wrapped his tiny hand around my finger. Now those eyes held only menace. By morning, I was exhausted but too stubborn to let fear claim me. Sheriff Daniels came by again when I called in the incident. He listened carefully, his expression unreadable. "He's escalating," Daniels said at last. "This isn't just greed anymore. He's obsessed. He wants control. That makes him dangerous." I leaned against the counter, my hands shaking. "You don't think he'd really?" Daniels didn't sugarcoat it. "I think you need to assume he would. That means cameras, alarms, locks, and a plan for when, not if, he tries again." The word "when" sent a tremor down my spine. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. That afternoon, Emily and I drove to town. We bought new locks, security cameras, motion lights, everything we could think of. A kind man from the hardware store even offered to come install some of it, sensing the weight of the situation from the way Emily hovered close to me. But I knew locks and cameras wouldn't be enough. Michael was my son. He knew my rhythms, my habits. He knew the creaks in the floor, the spots where I hid things. If he wanted in badly enough, he'd find a way. That night, as the new lights blinked on outside, I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of Richard's old papers. Among them, a folder I hadn't dared to touch until now. His plans for charitable trusts. His notes about donations he wanted to see made. Emily found me there, hours later, lost in thought. "You're really going to do it, aren't you?" she asked softly. I looked up. "Do what?" "Use the money for others, not just yourself." I nodded slowly. "Your father didn't build all this so Michael could tear it apart. He believed in people, in lifting them up. If Michael thinks I'll just sit here and hand him the fortune, he's wrong. I'm not his victim." Emily smiled faintly. Grandma's got fight in her after all. But my confidence cracked only a few nights later. It was near midnight when the security lights flared on outside. I froze at the sound. Emily and I rushed to the window, peeking through the curtains. A figure stood at the edge of the yard, still, silent, watching. Michael. The cameras caught his face clearly as he stared straight at the lens, his expression unreadable. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there long enough to let us know he was there. And then he walked away into the darkness. When the sheriff came the next morning to review the footage, he shook his head grimly. "He's playing mind games now, trying to wear you down before he makes his move." But I was tired of being played with. For the first time since this nightmare began, something inside me hardened. If Michael wanted a war, he was going to get one. The next week, I began making calls again. Not just to lawyers and accountants this time, but to people who could make a difference. I contacted the community college in Nashville about a scholarship in Richard's name. I reached out to a women's shelter that needed funding. Every dollar I promised, every plan I signed, felt like another wall built between Michael and his greed. But I didn't stop there. I also called an investigator, a woman named Carla, recommended by Sheriff Daniels himself. Ex-military, sharp eyes, calm voice. She met me at the house one morning, notebook in hand, and listened carefully as I laid everything out. "You're dealing with someone who's desperate and feels entitled," she said at last. "That's a bad combination. But desperate people also make mistakes. And when he does, I'll be ready to catch him." Her confidence steadied me more than I realized. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't entirely powerless. But Michael wasn't going to make this easy. It was 2 weeks later when the package arrived. Emily brought it in, thinking it was just another delivery. But when I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. Inside was a stack of old photographs. Pictures of me, of Emily, of the house. Some were decades old. Some were from just last week. The most chilling one sat on top. A photo of me, sitting by the kitchen window at night. My face pale in the glow of the lamp. Taken from outside. Emily gasped when she saw it. "He's been here, watching, this whole time." My hand shook as I pulled out the final photo. It was a picture of my late husband's gravestone. And across it, in thick black marker, someone had scrawled one word. Mine. I stared at the photo until the letters blurred. Mine. The black ink cut across Richard's name like a wound, deep and raw. My stomach twisted, my hands trembling so badly the picture nearly slipped from my fingers. Emily stood frozen by the table, her face pale as paper. "Grandma, he went to the cemetery." Her voice was no louder than a whisper, as if saying it out loud might make it more real. I pressed the photo down flat on the table and closed my eyes. The man who had once called me mom was now desecrating his father's grave. The boy I had carried in my arms, kissed goodnight, prayed for, was taunting me with the one thing I still held sacred. Something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about money anymore. This wasn't about the inheritance, the mansion, or Michael's greed. This was war. And he had just crossed a line that no mother could forgive. I called Carla, the investigator, immediately. Her voice was calm, steady, but even she drew in a sharp breath when I told her what I found in the package. "That's escalation," she said. "He's trying to break you emotionally before he makes his real move. But now we have evidence. Photos like that? That's stalking. That's criminal. You're not alone anymore, Mary. We'll catch him." But the reassurance only lasted so long. That night, every shadow looked like Michael's figure. Every creak in the walls felt like him slipping through a crack. Emily refused to sleep in her room. She curled up beside me instead. I kissed her forehead. "We're going to be okay, sweetheart," I whispered. But the words tasted like lies. "Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know. You might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this." 2 days later, Michael proved me right. It was around 9:30 at night when the power went out. The entire house plunged into darkness with a snap. Emily screamed, clutching my arm. "Stay calm," I said, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. The security lights outside, nothing. Dead. Even my phone showed no signal. He had cut everything. I grabbed the small flashlight I kept by the nightstand and motioned Emily to follow me into the kitchen, where Carla had instructed us to keep a panic button that linked directly to her. My fingers fumbled as I pressed it, praying it still worked even without power. And then came the sound. A scrape. A slow, deliberate scrape against the back door. Emily's eyes went wide with terror. I whispered, "Upstairs." "Now." We crept up the stairs as quietly as possible, my flashlight beam trembling across the walls. Behind us, a loud bang echoed through the house. The sound of a shoulder slamming into the back door. "He's trying to break in," Emily hissed. I pulled her into Richard's old study, locked the door, and shoved the dresser against it. We sat in the dark, holding each other, listening to the sound of the door downstairs rattling, then splintering. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Slow. He was inside. Emily buried her face into my shoulder, her small body shaking. I wrapped my arm around her, praying Carla or the sheriff would arrive in time. The footsteps moved closer, creaking up the stairs, step by step, until they stopped, right outside the study door. My breath caught in my throat, and then silence. We waited. Seconds stretched into minutes, each one heavier than the last. And then a loud crash downstairs shattered the silence, the sound of the front door flying open. Voices. Flashlights. Sheriff's Department. "Michael, put your hands where I can see them." Relief flooded me so hard my knees nearly buckled. They had come. The panic button had worked. But Michael was no fool. By the time they searched the house, he was gone. Out into the night, slipping away like smoke. The sheriff sat with me afterward, his jaw tight. "He's not stopping, Mary. He's escalating every time. This isn't about scaring you anymore. This is about control. He's going to keep coming back until he gets what he wants." I looked him straight in the eye. "Then we make sure he never gets it." Carla nodded from across the room, her arms crossed. "That means we stop playing defense. It's time to set a trap." I raised an eyebrow. "A trap?" She leaned forward. "Michael believes he's smarter than you. Smarter than the law. That arrogance is his weakness. If we make him think he's finally going to get what he wants, he'll expose himself. And when he does, we'll have him." I swallowed hard. "You mean bait him with the money?" Carla nodded. "Exactly. You let him think you're giving in, that you're tired, broken, that you're ready to hand it over. He'll take the bait. Emily clutched my hand, horrified. Grandma, you can't. It's too dangerous. But deep down, I knew Carla was right. Michael wasn't going to stop, and I was done waiting for him to strike. If he wanted a game, I was going to play. But I was going to win. Over the next week, Carla and the sheriff worked with me to craft the perfect lie. Papers were drawn up, fake enough to look real, suggesting I had finally agreed to give Michael access to the money. The plan was simple. I'd meet him at a neutral location under the guise of signing everything over. Hidden cameras, undercover officers, Carla nearby. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also the only way to corner him. Emily hated it. She cried the night before, begging me not to go. What if something happens? What if he hurts you? I held her tight. Sweetheart, I've spent my whole life protecting this family. I can't stop now. If I don't face him, he'll never stop hunting us. And though fear gnawed at me, I knew in my heart this was my only chance to reclaim my life. But Michael was already one step ahead. Because the night before the planned meeting, as I lay in bed with Emily asleep beside me, I heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of footsteps inside the house. He was here, already. And this time, he wasn't leaving until one of us broke. The sound of those footsteps froze the blood in my veins. Slow, careful, confident. He knew exactly where to step, which floorboards not to creak. Michael had been inside this house 1,000 times before. He knew it like the back of his hand. Emily stirred beside me in the bed. Grandma, she whispered groggily, half asleep. I pressed a hand over her mouth gently, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would wake the whole neighborhood. Her eyes flew open in panic, and I mouthed, "He's here." The footsteps grew louder. Down the hallway now, heading straight toward us. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could, reaching under the mattress for the heavy flashlight I'd started keeping there ever since the last break-in. My fingers brushed against the cool metal, gripping it tight. Emily's hands shook as she clutched the blanket up to her chin. Her lips moved silently. "Please don't leave me." I didn't. I crouched by the bed, flashlight raised, my back straight against the wall. And then the doorknob turned. It wasn't fast. No, it was slow, deliberate, a taunt. I held my breath as the lock clicked. The door eased open, and a dark silhouette filled the frame. Michael. He didn't speak at first. He just stood there, tall and broad, the faint glow of the moonlight spilling across his face. His lips twisted into a grin. "Well, well," he whispered. "Isn't this cozy?" Emily whimpered. I could feel her trembling from across the room. I tightened my grip on the flashlight. "You don't belong here, Michael. Leave now before it's too late." He stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. "Oh, Mom," he said, shaking his head. "You still don't get it. This house, this money, this life, it was supposed to be mine. Dad promised me. You were just supposed to keep it warm until I was ready." My chest burned with fury. "Your father never promised you greed. He wanted you to be a man, Michael. To work. To build. Not to steal." His face darkened, his voice dropping to a snarl. "Don't lecture me. You think you're better than me because you married rich? Because you've been sitting on everything while I've had to scrape? That inheritance is mine. And if I have to scare you out of it, so be it." Emily cried out, "You're a monster." Michael's eyes flicked to her, sharp and cruel. Maybe she needs a lesson too. He took a step closer. That was the moment something inside me, fear, grief, anger, snapped like brittle glass. I surged forward, swinging the flashlight with every ounce of strength in my body. It cracked against his shoulder with a dull thud. Michael stumbled, cursing, his hand flying up to block another blow. "Run, Emily!" I shouted. She bolted from the bed, darting past Michael as I swung again. This time he caught my arm, his grip like iron. He shoved me hard against the wall, my shoulders slamming painfully. "You think you can fight me?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. His breath reeked of whiskey. "You're old, weak. I could crush you right here." But his arrogance blinded him, because in his rage he hadn't noticed Emily grabbing the phone off the nightstand. She darted back toward the door, screaming into it. "Grandma's in danger." Help. Michael spun, distracted for a second, and that was all I needed. I drove my knee into his stomach as hard as I could. He doubled over, gasping, and I slammed the flashlight down onto his back. He roared, stumbling forward, knocking over the dresser. Emily, go. I screamed again, and this time she didn't hesitate. Her small footsteps thundered down the hall. Michael straightened slowly, breathing hard, rage twisting his face. He wiped blood from the corner of his mouth, then smiled. You've got more fight in you than I thought, Mom. But you can't protect her forever. I'll get what's mine, one way or another. And then, before I could move, he lunged for the window. In one smooth motion, he shoved it open and leapt into the night. By the time the sheriff and Carla arrived minutes later, he was gone again, vanished like a ghost. Carla stormed into the bedroom, her face pale. Mary, are you hurt? I shook my head, though every bone in my body ached. I'm fine. Emily. She rushed in from the hall, tears streaming down her cheeks, but safe. I pulled her into my arms, kissing her hair. It's okay, baby. We're okay. But Carla's face said otherwise. This isn't working, she said firmly. He's getting bolder, more violent. If we don't stop him now, next time it won't end like this. The sheriff nodded grimly. She's right. We've been trying to catch him red-handed, but he's too slippery. We need something stronger. A restraining order won't cut it. We need to put him away. I looked between them, my heart heavy. But how? Every time he comes, he runs before you can catch him. Carla's eyes narrowed. Then we don't wait for him to come to us. We take the fight to him. The sheriff frowned. That's risky. But I felt a strange calm settle over me. I had been hiding, defending, waiting. And it had nearly cost Emily tonight. Carla was right. Enough was enough. I straightened my shoulders. Tell me what we need to do. The next morning, Carla laid out the plan. Michael had a small cabin in the woods just outside town, a place he used as a hideout. He thought no one knew about it. But Carla, resourceful as always, had dug it up. That's where he goes when he needs to disappear, she explained. If we can get him cornered there, we can end this once and for all. The sheriff agreed reluctantly. We'll set up surveillance. But Mary, I need you to understand. If he sees you there, he may not hold back. He's dangerous. I met his eyes steadily. Sheriff, he's already tried to break me. He's tried to hurt my granddaughter. I'm not afraid anymore. If facing him is what it takes to protect my family, then I'll do it. Emily overheard, and she burst into tears. Grandma, please don't. What if he hurts you? I knelt, holding her hands tight. Sweetheart, I'm doing this for you, so that you don't have to live in fear anymore. I promise I'll come back. I'm stronger than he thinks. She nodded reluctantly, clinging to me. Then make him pay. That night, we drove out to the cabin. The sheriff and 2 deputies hid in the woods, while Carla and I waited in a car down the dirt road. It was dark, the air heavy with tension. My palms sweated against the steering wheel as I stared at the dim glow of the cabin's window. Hours passed. Then movement. Michael's figure appeared in the window, pacing, agitated. He had no idea we were watching. Carla leaned close. This is it. Time to end it. But just as we prepared to move, Michael did something none of us expected. He opened the door and dragged someone else inside. A woman. Bound, gagged, terrified. My blood ran cold. Michael hadn't just been after me. He was dragging others into his madness. And now the stakes had become something far darker than I had ever imagined. The sight of that woman stumbling into the cabin nearly stopped my heart. Her wrists were tied in front of her, a gag pulled tight across her mouth, eyes wide with terror. She fought against Michael's grip, but he shoved her inside like she was nothing more than a sack of grain. Carla gasped beside me. Oh my God, he's escalated. The sheriff's voice crackled through Carla's radio earpiece. Stay put. Do not move in yet. We need to assess. If we rush, he could hurt her. I gripped Carla's arm so tightly she winced. We can't just sit here while he has that poor woman. He'll kill her. Carla looked torn, her jaw clenched. If we blow the operation, he'll vanish again. But if we wait too long... The decision wasn't really a decision at all. I'd lived too long, seen too much, and if life had taught me anything, it was that sometimes you don't wait for the world to fix itself. Sometimes you step in, trembling but firm, and you force it to change. Inside the cabin, Michael yanked the woman into a chair, tying her to it with a roughness that made bile rise in my throat. He was muttering to himself, pacing, slamming his fists against the wall. His madness was spiraling, out loud now, no longer hidden beneath charm or excuses. You think you can just take from me? He barked at her, though she shook her head wildly, as though she didn't even know what he was talking about. They all owe me. Dad owed me, Mom owes me, and now you. I leaned closer to the windshield, squinting through the shadows. That's when my stomach dropped. I knew her. Her face was thinner now, streaked with dirt, her hair messy, but I remembered those eyes. It was Sarah, my niece, the daughter of my estranged brother, whom I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. She had disappeared months ago, and the family thought she had simply run off. But here she was, in Michael's hands. I gasped aloud, my whole body trembling. Carla, that's my brother's girl. That's Sarah. Carla's mouth fell open. You're sure? As sure as I've ever been. My voice cracked. He didn't just break into houses. He's been taking people. My people. The sheriff's voice came through the earpiece again, low and urgent. Mary, Carla, we need confirmation. Are you saying the hostage is family? Carla pressed the button. Yes, it's Sarah, Mary's niece. There was a pause. Then that changes things. We go in tonight. Prepare yourselves. Inside, Michael began pacing again. His ranting grew louder, more fevered. They think they can cut me out. They think they can write me off like I don't exist. But I'll show them. I'll make them beg for me back. When Mom sees what happens to her precious niece, oh, she'll understand then. He grabbed a bottle from the counter, smashing it against the wall. Glass flew everywhere, and Sarah screamed behind her gag. Carla's grip tightened on my wrist. Mary, listen to me. When we go in there, he's going to come for you. You're the symbol of everything he thinks he lost. You need to be ready. I swallowed hard, my chest heaving. I'm ready. I've been ready since the night he put my suitcase on the porch. Carla gave me a look that was both fierce and gentle. Then let's end this. The sheriff's team moved like shadows through the trees, surrounding the cabin. Carla and I followed behind, hearts racing, careful not to snap a twig or crunch a leaf, through the cabin window. Michael was now pacing with a knife in his hand, the jagged reflection of broken glass still glittering around him. The sheriff's hand lifted. The signal. On 3, the door burst open. Sheriff's department. Drop the weapon. The room exploded in chaos. Deputies stormed in, guns raised. Michael spun, eyes wild, holding the knife to Sarah's throat. One step closer and she dies, he bellowed, dragging her chair back with him. Sarah sobbed, tears streaking her face. I froze at the doorway, my entire body trembling. For one moment, his eyes locked on mine. Mom, he snarled. You. This is all your fault. He left it to you. You. When it should have been mine. The sheriff's voice was steady, calm. Michael, let her go. Nobody has to get hurt tonight. But Michael wasn't listening. His grip tightened on the knife, pressing it close enough to Sarah's skin that I saw a thin red line appear. Something inside me snapped again, the same something that had given me strength the night he came into my bedroom. I stepped forward, past the deputies, past Carla's warning hand. Michael, look at me. His head jerked toward me, eyes blazing. You don't want her, I said firmly. You want me. Isn't that right? I'm the one you hate. I'm the one you blame. If you're going to take someone, take me. Carla hissed, Mary, no. But Michael's face shifted. For a moment, confusion replaced rage. His hand trembled on the knife. You do that? He asked, voice low and broken. Yes, I said, stepping closer, my heart hammering. Let her go and take me instead. Sarah's eyes widened in shock, muffled sobs echoing behind the gag. Michael laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Oh, Mom, you think this is noble? You think this is some kind of redemption? No, this is mine, and I'll take what's mine. Before anyone could react, he shoved Sarah aside and lunged at me, knife raised. The deputies shouted. Carla screamed. I braced myself for the impact, but instead, Michael stopped cold, because the sheriff had fired. The crack of the gunshot echoed through the cabin. Michael staggered, dropping the knife. His eyes went wide, blood blooming across his shirt. And then he collapsed at my feet. The room was silent except for Sarah's muffled sobs. I stood frozen, staring down at the broken body of my son. My boy, my flesh and blood, but also my tormentor, my betrayer, my would-be killer. The deputies rushed forward, securing the scene, cutting Sarah free. She collapsed into Carla's arms, shaking and sobbing. The sheriff lowered his weapon, his face grim. I had no choice. He was going to kill you. I nodded numbly, though my heart felt like it was tearing apart inside me. Emily's voice echoed in my memory. Grandma, please don't. What if he hurts you? He hadn't hurt me, not in the way I'd feared, but the scar he left behind that night would never truly heal. Carla guided me gently outside as deputies swarmed the cabin. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "It's over." But deep down I knew it wasn't. Because when a man like Michael dies, he doesn't just leave behind a body. He leaves behind questions, secrets, and consequences. And in the days that followed, I would learn that my son's betrayal was only the beginning of something far darker than I ever imagined. The cabin was still under floodlights when the coroner's van arrived. Deputies moved in and out like worker ants, snapping photos, bagging evidence, marking the floor where the blood had pooled. I sat on the back of an ambulance with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring blankly at the trees. The night air in North Carolina was cool, but I didn't feel it. My ears still rang with the sound of the gunshot. Sarah, my niece, was a few yards away. She sat slumped against Carla, trembling, her wrists bandaged where the rope had cut her. Every so often, she'd look at me with a haunted expression, like she didn't know whether to thank me or blame me for what had just happened. Michael's body was wheeled out, zipped into a black bag. I flinched at the sight, pressing the blanket tighter around myself. That bag was heavy with the weight of my son, but also with the weight of every sin he had carried. Carla crouched beside me, her face kind but sharp. Mary, I need to warn you. This doesn't end tonight. His death is just the surface. We're going to start digging, and what we find, she shook her head. It could turn your life upside down. I gave a bitter laugh. What life? The one he already tore apart. Carla didn't smile. I mean it. I've seen men like Michael before. They don't operate alone. And from what your niece is saying, she wasn't the first. Her words made me shiver. Not the first? You mean? Carla nodded grimly. There may be others. Missing women. Unsuspecting victims. He might have been part of something bigger than we thought. The next morning, I woke up in my house, or rather, in what was left of it. Broken locks, ransacked drawers, overturned furniture. Deputies had tried to straighten things up, but the damage Michael caused lingered. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. Carla had stayed the night, refusing to leave me alone. She handed me a mug and sat across the table. Mary, the FBI's getting involved, she said. This isn't just a local crime anymore. They think your son might have been connected to a network. Trafficking, fraud, maybe even worse. The words hit like a stone in my chest. No. Michael was a liar, a thief, a cruel man, but not. I shook my head violently. Not that. Carla didn't push, but the look in her eyes told me she feared otherwise. Before I could say more, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a man in a gray suit, holding a briefcase. His expression was calm, almost smug. Mrs. Thompson, he asked. I nodded warily. My name is Richard Kane. I represent your late husband's estate. I stiffened. The lawyer? He gave a short nod. I was at the reading of the will. Yes. But there are additional matters that have come to light. Matters concerning the 101 million. Carla stepped protectively closer. She's not in the mood for more games. Say what you came to say. Kane adjusted his glasses. Mrs. Thompson, I'll be blunt. The money your husband left behind, it wasn't just inheritance. It was tied up in investments, business partnerships, and trusts. And it seems your son, Michael, had been dipping his fingers where they didn't belong. My stomach lurched. What do you mean? I mean, Kane said smoothly, that he siphoned off millions. Quietly, over years. And now that he's gone, certain dangerous people want repayment. The room tilted beneath me. Dangerous people. Repayment. The inheritance that had seemed like a blessing now felt like a curse. Carla stood straighter, her hand near her holster. Who are these people? King gave a thin smile. Let's just say they're not the kind you invite to Sunday dinner. And they know Mrs. Thompson now controls the estate. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. So you're saying they'll come after me? Yes, Kane said simply. And they won't knock politely like I did. That night, sleep refused to come. Every creak in the house, every shadow outside the window made my pulse spike. I kept seeing Michael's face, hearing his last words, "This is mine. I'll take what's mine." Only now I realized he hadn't just been talking about the inheritance. He had been tangled in something far darker. Around midnight, headlights swept across my driveway. I froze, clutching the phone in my hand. A black car idled outside. No one got out. The engine purred for a long, eerie moment before the car finally pulled away. Carla came rushing from the guest room, gun in hand. What was it? I pointed with shaking hands. They were here, watching. Carla's face darkened. It's starting. The next day, Sarah visited me. She was pale and thin, her voice shaky, but she clutched my hands like she was afraid I'd disappear. Aunt Mary, she whispered, he wasn't working alone. Michael, he talked to someone. On the phone every night. He called him the broker. Said the broker gave him jobs. Said if he ever failed, they'd come for him. My blood ran cold. Do you know who this broker is? Sarah shook her head. No, but Michael was terrified of him. Terrified. Carla's jaw clenched. If he was scared, then this broker is real and dangerous. Sarah began to cry softly. I thought he was going to kill me, Aunt Mary. I prayed every night. And he said he chose me because of you. Because he wanted to punish you. I pulled her into my arms, tears streaming down my own cheeks. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have stopped him sooner. I should have. But Sarah shook her head. You saved me. You were the only one who did. Her words pierced through the guilt in my chest like sunlight through clouds. For the first time, I let myself believe that maybe I had done something right. But as I held her, a chill crept up my spine. Because I knew the storm was far from over. Michael was gone, yes, but the shadows he left behind were alive. And they were coming for me. The following week, I got the first message. It came in the form of a small, unmarked envelope slid under my door. Inside was a single note, typed neatly on white paper. You have what belongs to us. Pay what Michael owed, or you will suffer his fate. No name, no number. Just a deadline, 7 days. My hands shook so violently I dropped the paper. Carla picked it up, her face grim. They know where you live. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. What do I do, Carla? What can I possibly do? Carla folded the note carefully. You survive. We don't let them win. And we start by finding out who the broker is. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table for strength. For years, I had lived in fear of Michael. Now, even in death, he was forcing me into a battle I never asked for. But this time, I wasn't just a victim. This time I had allies. I had truth. And I had nothing left to lose. Still, as the 7th day crept closer, I couldn't shake the question gnawing at my gut. What price was I going to pay for Michael's sins? And what if the debt was more than I could bear? The 7th day arrived like a ticking clock, every hour louder than the one before. I could barely eat. Every sound outside my window felt like a warning. Every knock at the door jolted my heart. Carla stayed close, but even her presence couldn't erase the creeping fear. She had set up cameras around the house, motion sensors, even a shotgun leaning near the doorway. If they come, she said, we'll be ready. But how could anyone be ready for people who lived in the dark? The morning of that 7th day, a package arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single object, one of Michael's watches. The gold one I'd given him for his college graduation. Attached was a note. Tick-tock, Mary. Time's up. My knees gave way. I sat on the floor, clutching the watch, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Carla took the note, her face stony. This isn't just intimidation, she said. It's a promise. They're moving in. That evening, Sarah came over to stay with me. I didn't want her to, she'd suffered enough already, but she refused to leave me alone. I won't let them scare you, Aunt Mary, she whispered, hugging me tight. We'll get through this together. I stroked her hair, feeling both pride and terror. She was so brave. Too brave for someone so young. Carla, however, wasn't convinced. Mary, she shouldn't be here. They know you. They might use her again. Sarah lifted her chin. Then let them try. I'm not running anymore. Her defiance lit something in me. A spark I hadn't felt in years. Maybe I wasn't powerless after all. But the spark dimmed when night fell. Because that was when the first attack came. It was close to midnight. Carla was in the living room, scanning the cameras on her laptop. I was in bed, Sarah asleep beside me, when the motion sensor shrieked. Carla burst into my room, gun drawn. They're here. I scrambled out of bed, dragging Sarah with me. We rushed toward the back door just as the glass in the front window shattered. A brick crashed onto the floor, wrapped in cloth. Carla scooped it up quickly. Scrawled in black marker across the cloth were the words, "Debt unpaid. Final warning." My blood froze. Outside, I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate. The sound of men circling the house. Carla shoved us into the pantry, whispering fiercely, "Stay quiet. Don't move." Through the crack in the door, I saw her take position near the entryway, her weapon aimed, her jaw tight. Shadows moved across the broken window. Figures outside. At least 2, maybe 3. Then came the voice. Deep. Calm. Chilling. "Mrs. Thompson," it called. "We don't want trouble. We want what belongs to us. Open the door and maybe you'll live." My heart hammered. Sarah clutched my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. Carla didn't answer. She stood like a statue, gun steady. The silence stretched. Then, the front doorknob rattled violently. Someone was trying to force their way in. Carla fired. One deafening shot into the doorframe. A curse rang out. The figures outside scrambled back, their footsteps pounding against the driveway. A car engine roared. Tires screeched. Then silence. They were gone. I didn't breathe until Carla lowered her weapon. "They'll be back," she muttered. "And next time they won't run." Sarah was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "Aunt Mary, they're going to kill us, aren't they?" I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. "No," I whispered fiercely. "No, they won't. I won't let them." But inside, my stomach was twisting with dread, because I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, Carla made some calls. She wasn't just the local cop. She had connections, people who owed her favors. By afternoon, a man showed up at my house. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of eyes that missed nothing. He introduced himself as Agent Miller, FBI. He didn't waste time. "Mrs. Thompson, we've been watching this group for a while. The broker is real, and he runs a network that makes Michael look like a petty thief. Drugs, money laundering, women." I flinched. Don't say that. "Not Michael. Please." Miller's face softened, but his words stayed sharp. "I'm sorry, but your son wasn't just dabbling. He was in deep. And when he died, his debts didn't die with him." Carla crossed her arms. "They've already come for her once. What's the Bureau planning to do?" Miller glanced between us, then leaned closer. "We're planning to use her." My stomach dropped. "What?" "You're the executor of your husband's estate," he said. "That means the broker will reach out again. We want you to play along. Buy us time. Draw him out. And when he comes, we'll be ready." I shook my head violently. "No, I'm not bait. I'm not risking Sarah's life for this." Miller's expression was unyielding. "With respect, Mrs. Thompson, you don't have a choice. If you don't cooperate, he'll come anyway. At least this way, you'll have protection." Carla put a hand on my shoulder. "Mary, I know it sounds insane, but he's right. If we hide, they'll find us. If we fight, we might actually win." I looked at Sarah. Her eyes were wide, fearful, but she nodded slowly. Aunt Mary, we can't keep running forever. My throat tightened. My son had dragged me into hell. Now I was supposed to march deeper into it, willingly. But deep down I knew the truth. I was already in the fire. All I could do now was make sure it burned the right people. 2 nights later, the phone rang. A voice, low, distorted, impossible to place, spoke on the other end. Mrs. Thompson, it said. I am the broker. Every muscle in my body locked. You have something of mine, the voice continued. 101 million. Michael made promises. Michael failed. His debt is yours now. My mouth was dry as sand. I don't have that kind of money. A chilling pause. Then the voice said, you'll find it. Or I'll take more than your money. The line went dead. Carla and Agent Miller were already recording from the next room, their faces grim. He's watching you, Miller said. And now he knows you're listening. I sank into the chair, my heart pounding. The broker wasn't a rumor. He wasn't a shadow. He was real. And he had just spoken my name. The sound of the broker's voice lingered in my ears long after the call ended. Cold. Calculated. Almost inhuman. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the silent phone, my fingers trembling against the wood grain. Carla poured me a glass of water, though her own hand shook. You heard him, she said. This isn't a game. He knows everything. Maybe even where we're sitting right now. Agent Miller, calm as stone, gathered the recording equipment. Good. The more he reveals, the better. He's already made contact. That's step 1. Step 1 to what? I snapped, handing me over on a silver platter. Miller didn't flinch. Step 1 to putting him in prison. But to do that, we'll need you to play your part. My chest tightened. I thought of Sarah, asleep upstairs. She'd been through enough. Her father's betrayal, the kidnapping, the fear every day. And now they wanted to drag her aunt into a trap? I can't, I whispered. I'm not a soldier. I'm not bait. I'm just a woman who buried her husband and her son in the same year. Miller leaned in, lowering his voice. And maybe that's why you're the only one who can do it. You have nothing left they can take from you, except the estate. And that's what the broker wants most. Carla's gaze hardened, but she said nothing. She didn't agree, but she didn't deny the logic either. The plan, according to Miller, was simple on paper. I would arrange a meeting with one of the broker's men, someone lower on the chain but high enough to handle money. The Bureau would wire me, track everything, and step in once they had enough evidence. Once we have him, Miller explained, we'll have a trail to the broker. You won't be alone. We'll be there watching every move. It sounded neat, controlled. But nothing about this life was ever controlled. Still, I agreed. Maybe it was out of exhaustion. Maybe it was the simmering rage that had been growing since Michael's choices shattered my family. Maybe it was just survival instinct. But I said yes. 3 nights later, I was in a hotel in downtown Atlanta, my nerves frayed to ribbons. The Bureau had rented the suite, filling it with hidden cameras and microphones. Carla was there too, her gun concealed beneath her jacket, her eyes sharp. Remember, Miller instructed, don't promise him anything you can't deliver. You just need to keep him talking. Keep him close. We'll do the rest. I nodded, though my stomach churned. At exactly 9 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Carla tensed. Miller gave a subtle nod. I opened the door. The man standing there wasn't what I expected. No ski mask, no thug demeanor. He looked like a businessman, clean-shaven, expensive suit, a calm smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Thompson, he said smoothly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. It's an honor. My name is Victor. Victor. The name was too ordinary, too neat, for someone carrying menace in every step. He sat at the table, folding his hands. I represent the broker. He asked me to extend courtesy. You see, he respects loyalty. He understands the pain of betrayal. And he wants to give you an opportunity to make things right. My throat felt tight. Michael, he didn't tell me about any of this. I didn't know. Victor smiled thinly. Of course you didn't. Michael was reckless. Soft. He thought he could cheat the system. But you, Mrs. Thompson, you are different. You're strong. And that's why the broker believes you will not make the same mistakes. Every word felt rehearsed, like he was reciting a script. I forced myself to breathe. What does he want from me? Victor's eyes gleamed. The estate. The funds. The 101 million your late husband left behind. It belongs to us now. Pay it and this ends. Refuse, and you already know the consequences. My pulse hammered. I don't even have access to that much. It's tied up in trusts, properties, investments. It's not like I can just write a check. Victor's smile didn't falter. Then find a way. The broker is a patient man, but not a forgiving one. I could feel the sweat on my palms, the hidden microphone beneath my blouse. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I kept my voice steady. If I cooperate, will you leave me and my family alone? Victor leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you cooperate, you'll have the broker's protection. More powerful than the FBI. More permanent than the law. You'll never want for anything again. The words slithered through me like poison. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Miller and 2 other agents stormed in, weapons drawn. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Victor didn't flinch. He merely raised his hands slowly, his expression calm, almost amused. You think this ends with me? He said softly, looking straight at me. This is only the beginning. As they cuffed him and dragged him out, I sat frozen in my chair, shaking. His words echoed in my head like a curse. For a brief moment, I felt relief. They had someone, a name, a link to the broker. Maybe now it would finally be over. But that night, as I lay in bed at the hotel, the phone in my room rang. I answered with a trembling hand. The same distorted voice filled the line. You disappoint me, Mary, the broker said. His tone was colder now, sharp with menace. Victor was loyal. You handed him to the wolves. My breath caught. I didn't. You think you're clever, the voice cut me off. You think the Bureau can save you. But they cannot protect you from me. Every step you take, every shadow you walk past, I will be there. And soon, you will learn what it means to betray the broker. The line went dead. I clutched the phone, my whole body trembling, because I realized something chilling. The broker wasn't angry that Victor had been taken. He was angry at me. And now he was coming. The hotel room was dark, except for the pale glow of the lamp on the nightstand. I sat there gripping the phone long after the broker's voice vanished. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, mocking me. Carla burst through the connecting door, gun already in her hand. What happened? Who was it? I couldn't answer right away. My lips parted, but no sound came. Finally, I whispered, he knows. He knows everything. He's coming for me. Agent Miller was only seconds behind her, his expression unreadable. The broker. I nodded. Miller cursed under his breath, pacing the room like a man with fire under his feet. That's not possible. We had secure lines. We monitored every signal out of this building. Carla's eyes narrowed. Unless someone in your office is feeding him. The room went quiet. Miller stiffened. For a moment, I thought he might actually draw his weapon on her. But instead, he said nothing. The Bureau moved me again that night. Different hotel, different city, different cover story. It didn't matter. Every new location felt like a trap waiting to spring. I slept with the light on, clutching Sarah's photograph under my pillow, my chest tight with dread. 2 days later, Miller came back with grim news. Victor's dead, he said. They transferred him to a secure facility in Virginia. His transport convoy was ambushed on the interstate. Not a single man survived. My stomach dropped. You mean the broker? Yes. He silenced him. Permanently. Carla slammed her fist against the table. So that's it? He kills one of his own, and you people have nothing? Miller's jaw worked, his tone clipped. We have scraps. Enough to prove this isn't just some small-time racket. The broker's reach is everywhere. Judges, politicians, even inside law enforcement. The way he said it made the air in the room colder. I suddenly understood why Miller looked so worn, why his eyes always carried shadows. He wasn't just fighting criminals, he was fighting ghosts inside his own house. A week later, I got another call. This time, it wasn't the broker. It was my son's wife, Jennifer. I hadn't spoken to her since Michael's death. She had vanished, taking whatever sympathy people had left for her and weaponizing it into silence. But now, her voice trembled through the line. "Mary, we need to talk. It's about the broker." Carla and Miller were immediately suspicious. "She's bait," Carla warned. "Don't go." But something inside me, a tug I couldn't ignore, told me I had to. We met at a church in Savannah, far from the noise of the city. Jennifer looked nothing like the polished woman she used to be. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes wrinkled. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Michael made a deal he couldn't keep," she said, her hands clutching the edge of the pew. "But it wasn't just him. I helped. I pushed him. We thought we were building a future, but we built a cage." Tears streaked her face. "The broker wanted me too. After Michael died, I thought I was free. But I wasn't. He's been watching me. He knows where I am, who I'm with, everything." Her voice cracked. "Mary, he won't stop until he has it all. You can't fight him. Nobody can." Her despair twisted something in me. Not sympathy, not yet, but recognition. She was trapped just like I was. Before I could respond, the church doors creaked. Carla's hand went to her weapon. Miller's eyes scanned the shadows. And then a man stepped inside. Tall, well-dressed, his face calm, almost elegant. "The broker," Miller breathed. I felt my blood run cold. He didn't shout. He didn't brandish a weapon. He just walked down the aisle like he owned the place, his voice smooth as silk. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, his eyes locking on mine. "We finally meet." Carla raised her gun. "Don't move." The broker smiled faintly. "If you shoot me, 10 men will take my place by nightfall. But if you listen, maybe, just maybe, you'll walk out of here with your family intact." He stopped only a few feet away, his presence heavy, suffocating. "You think you've won battles," he said softly. "But wars aren't won with agents or hidden microphones. Wars are won by those who can outlast everyone else." I forced myself to meet his gaze. "You've already lost, because I won't give you what you want." Something flickered in his expression. Annoyance, maybe even surprise. He leaned in slightly. "Be careful, Mary. Martyrs are only remembered if there's someone left to tell their story. You could disappear tonight, and the world would never know." The silence after his words was unbearable. And then, before I could respond, the church doors burst open. A flood of tactical agents swarmed in, rifles raised, voices thundering commands. "FBI, hands where we can see them." For the first time, the broker's calm cracked. He glanced around, his jaw tightening. Miller barked, "On the ground." "Now." But the broker didn't move. Instead, he smirked. "You think this ends here? You think chains can hold me?" He looked straight at me again, his voice almost gentle. "Even if you bury me, Mary, the roots I've planted will grow, and they will choke you." Carla shouted, "Move," and shoved me behind a pew as agents surged forward. The last thing I saw before the chaos erupted was the broker's eyes, steady, unblinking, as though he had already accepted whatever came next. Gunfire cracked. Shouts echoed. Jennifer screamed. And then silence. When I lifted my head, the broker was on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. His eyes were still open, still fixed on me. For a moment, it felt like he was alive, watching, waiting. But then Miller's voice broke through. "He's down. He's gone." I sagged against the pew, my body shaking with relief, with exhaustion, with something close to disbelief. Weeks passed. Investigations unraveled the broker's empire piece by piece. His accounts were frozen, his men scattered, his influence bleeding out. For the first time in months, I slept without fear clawing at my chest. The estate was safe. Sarah was safe. Carla, my fierce, unyielding Carla, stood by me through it all. But safety didn't erase the scars. At Michael's grave, I stood with a small bouquet of wildflowers, the Georgia sun warm on my shoulders. "You left a mess, my son," I whispered. "But I cleaned it. Not for you. For Sarah. For all of us." I let the flowers fall against the stone. And for the first time, I felt something close to peace. Life didn't go back to what it was. It never could. But it moved forward. And as I sat on the porch of my house one evening, watching Sarah chase fireflies, Carla beside me, I thought of the broker's last words. He said his roots would grow. Maybe they would. But I had roots too. Roots built on kindness, on love, on the kind of strength that doesn't need fear to survive. And those roots, they would outlast his. Always.